It is the 10-minute warning, everybody. Welcome to our pre-show of today's SY0-701. That is our Security Plus study group. I'm just getting things going here. You can kind of see I'm right there. We're checking all of our cameras. We're making sure recordings are going. And, of course, we have our digital map. If you wanted to put your I don't know, virtual pin into our digital pin cushion, you can do that right there at professormesser.com/QA. That's an important link that will get you to all the questions we're going to do today. The way this works is I get things set up 10 minutes beforehand and you get to watch. And I will do in the first hour questions that are pre-made. I've created for you brand new questions. I do this for every live stream. Brand new questions. Hello, chat room. And then we are going to do all questions in the first hour, and then you can submit questions to me to answer in the second hour. And you can do that using the same link that's right there behind me, professormesser.com/QA. That is the link right there from the bird cam. So here we are. Hello, everyone. It is an end of the month. This is our last live stream of the month. Of course, we have more live streams set up already for July. The calendar's been updated. Hello, chat room. I hope everybody's doing well. We will get started at the top of the hour. You can see the big clock on the desk. We're currently another 8 minutes or so away from getting that started. Hello, Mal. Good to see you. You are here early today. Hope things are good in St. Vincent. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. We really do appreciate you hanging out with us. There's so much we have to go through today. Most of the Security Plus we'll talk about today. I'm getting a lot of questions about newer versions of Security Plus, but that's not going to be around for quite some time. So you're in the right place with the right version of the exam right now. People always say, should I wait? Why would you wait? Get the certification, get it in your pocket. Keep it moving. If you're studying now for your Security Plus, you will have already taken your exam, passed it, got your certification, and be on your way before a new version ever comes out. So that's how far away we are from any type of new exam version. Plus a new exam version. I've already seen the new version, what it's going to be. I'm already working on it. There's already most of it's done. Quite honestly. We're so far away, and yet I've got most of it done already, mostly because the differences in the versions are usually relatively minor. Usually it's about a 20 to 30% of the content is new. So you'll notice that every time you see an update, but we're so far away from that we're in really good shape. Hey, chat room, thanks for being here. Folks are checking in from everywhere. We got folks in Jacksonville, in India. We've got Charleston. We've got how much AI is in the new version. I had somebody send me a note, was it yesterday, day before, that said, hey, I was watching you online. Are you AI? Like, no, you can go back quite some time and see that I am definitely not artificial. No way. So that was a treat to see that. Everything's now AI. Hey, you're talking like you really know what you're talking about. You must not be real. And okay, thank you. I'm taking it as a compliment. But of course, I've been in this industry. I've worked in the trenches. I've been the systems engineers. I've installed the firewalls. I've designed the networks. I've done the work. So when I talk to you about security and networking and hardware and software and operating systems, I'm coming from a place of in the trenches hard work to get there. Just so you can give a perspective of that, which I think is an important part and really differentiates what we see online from artificial means to something that can actually be applied, which is an important part of this, I think. Hope everybody's doing well. Folks are in Nigeria, Columbia, South Carolina. I need to go get some barbecue now. Philly's here. Zimbabwe checking in. Thanks for being here. Is this the right course? Now, that's a good question. Can you talk about cybersecurity? I guess I can. Today, we're obviously talking about Security Plus. This is our Security Plus study group. So we will be talking about security. Cybersecurity, it's like saying, can you talk about medicine? Well, I don't know. Are you going to be a pharmacologist? Are you going to be a nurse? Are you going to be a doctor? Are you going to be Physical therapy? Are you going to be X-ray? Are you going to be MRI? You got to narrow it down a little bit. There's a lot going on there. But our focus today is IT security. That's where the sweet spot is for Security Plus. So those of you checking in from Baltimore, Maryland, and Dominican Republic, and South Africa, and Dublin, Ireland, and New Jersey, and Dallas, thank you for being here. And folks from Wales, thank you for being here. And from a different Columbia, South America, Columbia, thank you for being here. It's in Dallas, Texas. Dallas, Texas is here. Thanks for being here. We have a lot to go through today. Boy, checking in from everywhere. Join everybody. Come on in. If you're in the chat, you're here. Hit some hearts. Get things going. Get a drink. Make yourself comfortable. There's Orlando, Florida. There's my locals. How are you, Orlando? As many of you know, we are based in Central Florida, so our worldwide headquarters is here. So in the beautiful state of Florida, where it is. I checked the weather. I believe it's 730 degrees today. That's Fahrenheit. You'll have to do the conversion to Celsius. It's a little warm outside. We are melting. We're starting to get into that mode. For those of you familiar with the Central Florida cycle during the summertime, you know that it gets hot in the mornings and then it rains all afternoon. Just horrible thunderstorms all afternoon. That only lasts for a few months, and then we're back to nice things again. So that's sort of how it works. Folks checking in from Panama City, not Florida, Panama. Although maybe somebody is here from PC. We got folks checking in from Ghana, from Maryland. I'm sorry if I missed a few of you. Wisconsin just scrolled off my screen. I'm now looking sort of at my. You can kind of see the reflection, or not the reflection, but the main chat right here at the top, and then I have. In front of that, which you cannot see, is my prompter. So I'm just sort of looking up and looking at you. So when I am looking straight at you and talking to you, I'm actually seeing your chat go by in Greenville, Mississippi, and Chicago, and Hampton, Virginia, and the Bahamas, and the moon. You're on the moon. There's folks in Poland and in the Bronx, New York. Thanks for being here. People are shocked that it rains at Disney every day in the summer. That is true. Every day in the summer, it is raining. So that's just a sort of the normal way we do things. That's why here's your tip. If you come to Walt Disney World in Orlando during the summer, get up early. Do everything at the rope drop, as they say. Go ride all the things you want to ride. Go do all the things you want to do. And then you can come back when it starts to rain to your hotel, to a resort, hang out. Maybe it doesn't rain horrible. You can hang out at the pool, or you can be inside, have a coffee. And then when it settles down, because it does settle down, and then everybody who was in the park just left, then you can come back to the parks. And you're rested. Maybe you took a nap. That's the way you do it. That's the way I do it anyway. That's the way it works. That was a fake New York. That wasn't even close to being a New York accent. That wasn't even remotely. I am a Floridian. I was born in Florida. I've always lived in Florida. I've never lived anywhere else but Florida. So it's kind of weird, isn't it? Not a lot of us. There are a few of us that are hanging out. We got about a minute or so. So how many screens do I have right now? It is the yellow flies are out and about, aren't they? For those of us in Orlando. And I am there. How many screens? For sure. The screens are down. I have screens that go up and down. So I put the screens down. So the screens are down and we're good. I think less than a minute to go. We can actually do this. Folks checking in. Clearwater's here. Clearwater is here. Over there on the coast. Hard to get to Clearwater from where I am. Orlando and Tampa are so close to each other and so far away because we're connected with I-4. Say no more. That's just, the traffic is always bad. Someday we'll get a train. Someday. I'm looking forward to it. It would be nice if we make that happen. We can do that. So I think there is a lot to go through today. We have a lot of great things to discuss, to describe, is this live? This is live. Yes, it is. The way we know that is that I said it was live. Now, there should be a bug on your screen saying it's live. I believe that it should be there. So we'll have to see if that's the case. Thank you all for being here. We love it when we do these live streams. Look at that, top of the hour. I think that means I need to get my act together. That means I should probably work on starting the live stream. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the June 2026 Professor Messer Security Plus Study Group. This is the study group where I ask you questions that come directly from the SY0-701 Security Plus exam objectives. And we get to see how well you might know this content. I make brand new questions for every study group. So this will be a great opportunity for you to follow along, test your knowledge, see how well you happen to know some of this information I'm saying. And it's interesting when I'm putting together the questions, I never quite know if we really are covering everything that I want to cover. So occasionally you'll see me maybe mix things up on the live stream. It's one of the benefits of doing this live. Not only do I have these questions to ask you during this first hour, questions you've not seen before that I've made up just for this live study group, but in the second hour, I will answer your questions. So you're welcome to submit those questions at any time using the URL that is on your screen right here, professormesser.com/QA. It's a one-stop shop. It's only one place you need to go. Go to that URL and you can not only answer the questions, but you'll see a little tab at the top of the screen and you can submit questions there as well. If you are on our live stream Professor Messer website page, which is professormesser.com/live, you will see that this functionality is built into that page. Just scroll down a little bit. You don't even have to go to a new tab. It's just all right there and waiting for you. Now, the way that we tell if you are able to answer these questions is I want to give you a sample from previous study group. We're going to take a question, which I like to call our rewind question. And I want to ask this question of you right now. The question asks, a user brings their personal laptop to the office and connects it to a wall jack. With extensible authentication protocol, which of the following describes the laptop attempting to gain access? And by the way, as we go through these questions, we have a rule, our standing rule for the live stream. Please do not put answers into the chat room. Instead, use the link that you see right here at professormesser.com/QA. Also let you know that if you're watching this on a replay, that link won't be available, but that's okay. You can still follow along and pick whatever answer you think it is, and you'll see what all of us happen to think the answer happens to be. So the question again asks, a user brings their personal laptop to the office and connects it to a wall jack. With extensible authentication protocol, which of the following describes the laptop attempting to gain access? Would that be Radius Client, Authenticator, Supplicant, Gateway, or Active Directory? We're going to come back to that question in just a moment. Lock in your answer by visiting that link, professormesser.com/QA. Thank you so much for being here. This is the study group we do once a month to see how well you know your Security Plus exam objectives. But of course, our entire Security Plus course is available for you to watch for free online. There's no cost, there's no registration, there's nothing extra you have to do. They're all available for you to watch. Every minute of every video is out on YouTube at professormesser.com/YouTube. While you're there, you might even want to consider subscribing. Also, we have a weekly Security Plus Pop Quiz question. That Security Plus Pop Quiz question is published in email, so you can sign up to our email list right on the front page of our site. You can also get them on X, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. I think I also put them on Facebook, another place you can go for those. So we try to get a lot of different options wherever you happen to be and you need to get some Security Plus content, you'll probably find us on your favorite social media site. Also let you know that we'll be talking today about questions that come directly from the current version, in fact, the only version of the Security Plus certification that's available right now. It is called the SY0-701. So that is the version of the exam. Obviously, Security Plus doesn't have a version when you are certified, your Security Plus certification. There's no versions associated with that. This versioning is only specific to the exam that you are taking. This was an exam series that was released on November the 7th of 2023, and we estimate that it will retire somewhere around May of 2027. So as we sit here in June of 2026, it's almost a year away. As I said in the pre-show, if you are wondering, should I wait for a new version? Should I take the current version? you should take the current version. You will already have studied taking your exam and gotten certified before a new version even appears. That's how far away a new version happens to be right now. So you are in exactly the right place with exactly the right exam materials, and this is the version you should be studying from. Make sure all of your study materials have listed on them SY0-701. That's the way you do it. There is a single exam that you need to pass for the Security Plus exam. The single exam is one that is 90 minutes in length. You can get a maximum of 90 questions. There might be fewer than 90 questions on the exam. Usually there is, but they could ask you the full 90 questions. You need to get a score that is on a scale between 100 and 900. The passing score that you're looking for is a 750, 750. You make that or above, and you are Security Plus certified just by taking that single exam. The exam itself consists of mostly multiple choice questions, but there are a handful of questions at the beginning of the exam that CompTIA refers to as performance-based questions. Performance-based questions, or PBQs, are simply questions that are asked in a different format. We'll talk more about PBQs in just a moment, and I have a performance-based question for you today just to see how well you do with some of those things. Not only do we have our course available online, some of you like to have downloadable videos. You might want to get our course notes, which is a great summary of the information in all of those videos. Or you might want to really test yourself with a set of practice exams that have been designed to match the same style and tone as the actual exam. You'll find all of this on our website. If you want to look over the different study materials that we offer, you can see it at professormesser.com/701SB for our success bundle, or you might just want to go to the menus on our website and go directly to them from there. Also let you know that this live stream is going to be available on YouTube immediately after we're done. Takes a couple of minutes, and then suddenly it becomes available for everybody to watch on the replay. I also create an audio-only podcast version, so you can go to your favorite podcast listening program and add it. If you're looking for the links to add it to your podcast program, you can go to professormesser.com/podcasts. That's a great place to go as well. This is also something you can find on streaming media sites automatically. So if you're on Spotify, for example, just search for Professor Messer. All of our podcasts are already there. There's nothing more that you would need to do. Also, about a day after we're done, my marketing manager, Lori, will go through the YouTube video description and add detailed timestamps of everything that we do today. Hi, Lori. She's watching this replay right now, as a matter of fact. If there was a speed faster than 2x, she would probably be watching it faster than 2x. So this is a great place to go if afterwards, if you want to find the exact question or the exact answer or a question from you. Lori documents everything. It is all there. So if that's something that you like to use, or you think you may be able to use it, make sure that you put a heart into the chat. Let her know that you appreciate those timestamps, and she will see that as the replay goes through. That's another great thing to consider as you are looking at finding exactly what you want. And that's for all of our live streams. It's something that really helps quite a bit. Another thing that you will often find once we are done here, you're wondering where can we go to get more study in, to get some time to study with other people? Well, you can go to our Discord, where there are thousands of you registered and practicing and studying and setting up your own study rooms and asking questions of others. Simply go to professormesser.com/Discord. I'm over there as well. So if you want to drop me a line on Discord, you can certainly ask questions there. If there's anything going on, you'll be able to find it. You can ask questions of other people. And this might really help you quite a bit as you're studying for Security Plus, A Plus, Network Plus, or really any certification. We have sections on our Discord for all of that. Eventually, you will need to take your exam, and the Security Plus exam is one that you could go out to the CompTIA website and pay full price for. But why would you do that if you happen to live in the U.S., Canada, or a U.S. territory? You can get a discounted voucher from professormesser.com/vouchers. These are vouchers for any of the CompTIA exams, not just A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus. They're all out there. And I also want to give you a little extra thank you for coming by our site and purchasing your voucher. So you'll not only save money on the voucher, I'll give you a free copy of our Exam Hacks ebook. This is an ebook that you cannot purchase. It's only available with the purchase of a voucher or with the purchase of a success bundle. We don't sell it separately. So this is pretty exclusive for those folks who have those. This is a list of tips and tricks that I have accumulated through the years as I have taken these certification exams. I give you some study tips, and I give you tips during the exam, some different strategies you might want to consider using that could potentially get you some extra points on the final score. You can see all of that on our website at professormesser.com/vouchers. Let's go to that question I asked earlier. The question is, a user brings their personal laptop to the office and connects it to a wall jack. With extensible authentication protocol, which of the following describes the laptop attempting to gain access? Is this a Radius client, an authenticator, a supplicant, a gateway, or an Active Directory? Let's find out what you chose. I'm going to close our poll, and we can see that 50% of you say it is a supplicant, which, by the way, is a better number than we had last month, which means some of you have done very well with your studies. Although 27% of you say the answer is a Radius client, 12% said an authenticator, 8% said a gateway, and then 4% said an Active Directory. Now, we're talking about the laptop gaining access. And if we look at what we believe, or what I believe the correct answer to be, it would be the one that half of you chose, which would be the supplicant. This comes really from 802.1x, and usually we add in the EAP part of that. And instead of calling these things the laptop or the requester has an odd name, the laptop is the supplicant. The thing in the middle that we're trying to get access to is the authenticator. In many cases, that is a switch where we have configured 802.1x. And somewhere in the back end is some type of authentication server. This could be a Kerberos authentication server, an LDAP authentication server. It could be a Radius authentication server. It could be a TACAX authentication server, or any other type of authentication method. But in this particular question, we were asking specifically about the supplicant, about the laptop itself. And as we look at the options that are available to us on the screen, the laptop tells us that the answer that we have here, supplicant, was the right answer. Radius client, in this case, especially with 802.1x using EAP, the laptop does not communicate directly to the Radius server. It passes through the authentication in the middle. So it would not be a Radius client. It would never be a Radius client. So unfortunately, more than a quarter of you chose that one. Unfortunately, that is not our correct answer. It's also not the authenticator. In this particular example, the switch in the middle was the one that's actually doing the authentication process. It's checking on what's going on there. And we have other terms here like gateway and Active Directory that are not part of 802.1x and EAP, so they do not apply either, but only 8% and 4% chose those options respectively. If you want to know more about port security, especially how that works, how you would prevent somebody from getting into the network unless they authenticate properly, it's in my SY0-701 course, section 3.2, and we're looking for port security. So hopefully, I think a number of you knew this one. You did a very good job at figuring out what that answer was. I think you've remembered some of it from what we did in our last session. So well done. If you answered supplicant, you got that one absolutely right. Well, I have another question for you. This next question, now every question that we do is going to be brand new. And as many of you know, we have performance-based questions on the exam. Performance-based questions are questions that are anything but multiple choice. Some people get very concerned about that, but these are all questions that are being asked that tie directly back to the exam objectives. As I like to say, as long as you know the exam objectives, it really doesn't matter how they ask the question. It could be a fill in the blank. It could be a matching question. It could be a drag and drop question. It could be one where there's a scenario and you have to step through the scenario. There's lots of different ways to ask questions, of course. So I have for you today, as we do with every study group, a performance-based question that I would like you to answer. This one is relatively involved. Folks have sent me some emails and said, can you turn the difficulty level up a bit? And I said, ooh, okay, let's see if we can. Let's see if we can make it a little more challenging for you. So our performance-based question of the month is this one. There's a lot of text on the screen, but don't worry. There's only 4 questions I'm asking for all of this. You are a security analyst for a company that hosts a public-facing web application. During a security assessment, multiple vulnerabilities and attack attempts are identified. Review the following observations and match each attack description to the most appropriate attack type. So I have for you 6 different attack types and 4 different attacks. Already you can see there's a difference there. You have now 6 different options, which means that you're not going to use 2 of them. They're just going to be left off to the side. That's something very commonly seen on the exam, by the way. Those would be privilege escalation, directory traversal, forgery, injection, buffer overflow, and replay. So let's step through each of the different attacks, and I want you to tell me which of these different attack types is matched to the attack description. So if they're already in order, you could even just put into your ProfessorMesser.com/QA screen A1, B2, C3, and D4. That's not how they are answered, but that gives you an idea how you can answer them without doing a lot of typing. So let's now go to attack A. A web application login page accepts the following input in the username field, and it has an apostrophe or '1 apostrophe equal apostrophe 1. That's a lot of apostrophes and equals and ones in there. There's a lot going on there, but that's an attack, and it says after submitting the form, the attacker gains access without providing a valid password. What attack is that? Is it privilege escalation, directory traversal, forgery, injection, buffer overflow, or replay? Now, if you think you know the answer, as always, please, no answers in the chat room. Instead, you want to answer on the URL on your screen, ProfessorMesser.com/QA. The second attack is an attacker captures an encrypted authentication packet sent between a user and a server. Later, the attacker retransmits the exact packet and successfully gains access. What attack type is that? The next one is a standard user account exploits a flaw in a Linux application and obtains root-level permissions on the server. What attack type is that? And the last attack is a web application allows users to view files using a URL parameter, and I give a long URL there, which is example.com/view !file = report.txt. An attacker changes the parameter to .. // etc/password and successfully accesses sensitive system files. What attack was that one? So there's 4 different attacks to go through here, some of them with a detailed breakdown of exactly what was typed in by the attacker. What type of attack was it? We need to be able to recognize this when we are talking about the Security Plus exam and the different attacks and the different attack types. We have to recognize what they look like, especially if you're going through a log file, you're looking at a report that's been generated. These are important things to know. If you think you know the answer, put it in at the link you see on your screen, ProfessorMesser.com/QA. A lot of people asking about the supposed changes. I mentioned that this particular exam version is retiring about a year from now. And people are saying, well, once that retires, what happens if I'm Security Plus certified? The answer is nothing. They could change the exam every day if they wanted to. Once you are Security Plus certified, though, you're locked in. The exam questions don't matter to you anymore once you become certified. So that makes it kind of nice. You don't even have to think about it. The only thing you'll have to worry about is in 3 years, making sure that you renew your certification to keep your Security Plus cert, which also does not require you to take a new exam. So that's kind of nice. You have some options available for the exam, and you don't have to worry. Once you're certified, doesn't matter what they do with the exams. Doesn't matter what questions are there. Doesn't even matter necessarily what the exam objectives are because you are already certified. So that's one of the benefits of locking in now. While there is plenty of study material on the internet, this is an exam that's been around almost 3 years. You've got lots of people that have taken it. You've got lots of study materials and books and videos and things available to you. There's no better time to get your Security Plus certification. Get it locked in, earn your certification, and then doesn't matter what happens in the future with the exams because you'll already be Security Plus certified, which is kind of nice. Let's step through each of these different attacks and see if we can decide what we think the answer might be. We will start with our very first attack up here, which is a web application login page accepts the following input in the username field. And I told you that input is this odd bit of text, which is an apostrophe, the letter OR, an apostrophe 1, apostrophe equal apostrophe 1. That's an odd bit of information to put into a field. And it says after submitting the form, the attacker gains access without providing a valid password. Well, for those of you that have watched my SQL injection video, where I even step through and demonstrate how a live SQL injection occurs, you will easily notice that as an injection attack. So there's a lot of different types of injection attacks. SQL injection is a very popular kind, probably because you can put in just standard text and immediately gain access to a whole database. These are very bad attack types because they effectively give someone full access to all of the data without ever having to do any type of authentication. Usually the database is not something accessible to an end user. By simply putting in a little bit of text and injecting, that is SQL code that's right there, or as we say here in the South, that's the squirrel code. You can see how you might gain access into some of this information. Watch the video on this. It's intriguing to be able to step through and watch it in real time suddenly occur with a live SQL database. The next attack we looked at is an attacker captures an encrypted authentication packet sent between a user and a server. Later, the attacker retransmits the exact packet and successfully gains access, which, by the way, they should not. That's a bad thing. You should never have somebody take the information they already have, retransmit it, and somehow gain access. Something did not work properly with our security because they were able to accomplish a relatively simple replay attack. That is exactly what a replay attack is. It's taken something that's already been sent across the network. The attacker captures that information and then is able to resend that, replay it, if you will, and gain some type of access to data that they normally would not have access to. So that's a very uncommon type of attack. And if it's occurring, it's probably occurring because the security implementation was not done properly to begin with. Let's look at the next attack on our list. It is attack C that says a standard user account exploits a flaw in a Linux application or kernel and obtains root level permissions on the server. This is a little top of mind, isn't it? We've seen a lot of these Linux kernel attacks occur recently that really describe exactly what we're talking about here. There is a reason I put it into this list so that we could really understand what's happening. Go to a simple screen in Linux, type in some information, and suddenly you're the root user. You're the super user on that Linux machine. That is what we refer to as a privilege escalation. You would normally have user privilege, and just by typing something in at a prompt in your operating system, you suddenly get root privilege. That should not be happening unless, of course, you are properly authenticating into the system. So privilege escalation is a common vulnerability in operating systems. If you looked at, I guess it was last month's, maybe it was this month, the June Microsoft updated, the monthly update. And you know, these monthly updates are getting larger and larger and larger and larger because all of the work that is happening using AI to find these vulnerabilities really is a very good example of how on the large scale data side, AI is really helping to make our operating systems more secure. But that also means that they're finding hundreds and hundreds. They're finding 10 and 20 and 30 times more vulnerabilities every month. And it seems to be increasing in number. So if you're someone who has to do patches for operating systems, you have our thoughts and prayers to be able to keep up with all of that. And you'll notice that in the latest Microsoft ones, privilege escalation was a significant vulnerability that has been patched. Now, and of course, not just with Microsoft, the Linux updates during the last month have just been awful with patching different Linux kernels. So privilege escalation, certainly an attack, a vulnerability that you should be aware of because there will be attacks against those. And the last attack is a web application allows users to view files using a URL parameter. And this is a relatively normal URL, https://example.com/view?file equals report.txt. The attacker changes the parameter to ... etc/password. The etc password is where a lot of good information is stored, and normally people would not have access to that, but the attacker typed in some information and successfully accessed those sensitive system files. something they should not be doing. We refer to that specific style of attack as a directory traversal. Someone was able to type in information into their browser and effectively traverse the file system of that machine to gain access to areas of the file system that normally they would not have access to. This is usually a misconfiguration with the web server software and probably also with the operating system. Someone who is not authorized should certainly not be able to gain access to those files, and usually your web server should not have access to those either. That is certainly a directory traversal. Well, that means after going through all 4 of those, we can see that we did not use a forgery attack. That would be maybe a cross-site scripting type of attack. We didn't use one of those, and we didn't use a buffer overflow attack in these. So if you chose either of those, then you chose wrong. We did not use those. It's a very common strategy on the exam that they give you more answers than you can fill in a matching question because they want to give you a challenge. They want to make it difficult. You could potentially have gotten none of these correct. And when you're left over with a couple of extra options, it increases the difficulty level of these particular questions. So this is a very good example of where that would work. Now, in this particular example, and people have already asked this in the chat, is you could have gotten 1 correct. You might have gotten 3 correct and 1 wrong. You might have gotten maybe a partial correct and partial incorrect. Do you get partial credit? CompTIA does have a frequently asked questions file on their website where they answer this. They say that with a performance-based question, there may be times when they could potentially, possibly give you partial credit. That's not a quote unquote, but it's pretty close. They have said there are times when they could give you partial credit, but you'll never know if they do or if they don't, because they don't summarize any of that on the final sheet that you see at the end of the exam. All you really get is a score, and they don't tell you how that score was calculated. So I would like to hope that if we get a question like this on the exam, that this would be a good place where they could give you partial credit. I would like to think the glass is half full, where they would actually do something like that. So that's one of those where maybe this would be a good case for partial credit, but it doesn't have to be. They do not have to give you partial credit. Some people think they're required to. They are not. They could score it however they would like. But it's nice that they would at least tell us the potential's there. And I would like to think that means where they could, that they will. I'm hoping. Hope springs eternal. We'll see how that works for your exam too. That might be good to at least consider. That was our performance-based question of the month. That's a pretty good example of the type and style of question you might expect to see on the exam. But of course, performance-based questions are not any one particular style. They're not any one particular format. A performance-based question just means it's not multiple choice, which means it could be any type of question they could present. So the recommendation I have for you is study the exam objectives. And if you know your objectives, it doesn't matter how you answer or even how the different formats are. You'll know the answer, and it doesn't matter how they ask the question, which is really the important part of this. Now that we've done performance-based question of the month, hopefully you did pretty well on that one. We don't compile our performance-based answers, but hopefully you did really well. Folks in the chat room saying, I got all 4, I got 2 of them. It's really great to at least think about these different attack types and being able to recognize them. That will be an important part for your exam. Let's shift gears back to a multiple choice question. Our next question on the list is one that maybe is a little more familiar. We just answer A, B, C, or D, correct? So this question asks, a new employee is being onboarded and is required to sign a document outlining the proper use of company laptops and mobile devices. Which of the following best describes this document? Is it a privacy policy, an access control policy, a disaster recovery plan, an acceptable use policy, or a non-disclosure agreement? If you think you know the answer, please don't answer in the chat room. Instead, use this link on your screen right here, ProfessorMesser.com/QA. Lock in your answer by following that link, and we'll see how well you know this one. This might be something, if you're somebody who's working along anything dealing with IT security, you've probably run into all 5 of these things before. So I'm not making any of this up. There really are things such as privacy policies, access control policies, disaster recovery plans, acceptable use policies, and non-disclosure agreements. And for the Security Plus exam, you have to know all 5 of these. So that's another thing to think about as you're answering this question. Did you answer it with the right answer? Make sure you lock in your answer on that link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA. Let's see how well you do with that one. Should be a good one as you are thinking about how you are going to process all of this data. It's good that we have a new employee. I'd like to see people being hired right now, which really helps quite a bit. So make sure you do that as thinking about that as well. It might be something to consider. Let's see how you did with this one. The question again asks, a new employee is being onboarded and is required to sign a document outlining the proper use of company laptops and mobile devices. Which of the following best describes this document? Is it a privacy policy, access control policy, disaster recovery plan, acceptable use policy, or non-disclosure agreement? Let's close our poll and see how we did. Wow, big numbers. 93% of you say the answer is an acceptable use policy. And then obviously everything else is single digits. We have 4% that said access control policy, 2% that said non-disclosure agreement, 1% that said privacy policy, and nobody answered the disaster recovery plan. Good for you for not answering that one. The question, of course, is about the AUP, the acceptable use policy. You would think that you would not have to have one of these, that you could hope that people would know how to properly use the tools that are being provided to them by their employer. But as we have found, human nature doesn't always act the way we might think it should. So many organizations, most organizations, will have a formal document that says on your company asset, like your laptop, like your tablet, like your mobile phone that has been provided to you, there are certain things you can do, and there are certain things you absolutely should not be doing. Speaking, of course, as someone who has worked in the industry, part of my job in my last corporate position was setting up and collecting data from next generation firewalls. And every time we would plug into, maybe we're there for an evaluation, we plug into the network every time. This is multiple times a day at very large companies, maybe sometimes even small companies. We plug into the network and instantly we would see people doing things on the network that I won't even say they probably shouldn't be doing, they totally should not be doing. You tend to get a very good poker face when you are presenting this information to a room full of people and mentioning the URL of a very inappropriate website that somebody might be visiting. And then sometimes people would leave the room. Wait, I'll be right back. And they go find that person and tell them to maybe pack their things. Very, very difficult scenario. And that's why companies create these documents to tell people this is what you can do or what you can't do. So you can't pull a situation where somebody says, oh, was I not supposed to go to that site that you think is completely inappropriate and full of people that maybe don't have enough money to buy clothes? That is, I wasn't aware of that. Was I not supposed to go to that site on my company computer during company time? Well, you should have told me. And so there's an argument to be made. There's a legal argument certainly to be made there. And so one of the things that this does is make sure that people know that they should not be going to sites like that, even though I think they probably do know that. And it covers everything relating to technical type products, the internet use, the telephones they're using, the browsers they're in, the laptops, the screens that they're on. This is human nature, I guess. It's something where we really have to document everything. And usually it's to help prevent any type of legal liability, because if somebody does visit somewhere very inappropriate and then you have to fire them, you have to dismiss them from the organization, they're going to maybe have a beef about that. Maybe they'll try to bring some type of legal type issue to that. Well, now you have it documented that when you came on board, you saw this document, you signed the document, you knew you weren't supposed to do it, then you did it. Well, that helps protect the organization. And that is the main part of an acceptable use policy. You have two different things here. You've documented what you can and cannot do, and you've also got some protection there if things tend to go sideways once somebody leaves the organization. Acceptable use policy, yes, obviously the right answer. 93% of you answered that, and that is the answer that we were looking for. If you want to know more about the acceptable use policy and many of these other policies that you see in this list, you can go to our video in SY0-701 5.1 security policies. A privacy policy defines what a company does with your data. So usually this is talking about third-party data that they've collected, and they're letting you know how they will protect or what they will keep private about that data. It doesn't have anything to do with the proper use of company laptops. An access control policy is describing how you gain access to the information. Usually this is more of a technical policy that you would configure inside of an operating system or a group to provide access. You create an access control policy so that everybody in HR can access this HR database. That's an access control policy. We have a non-disclosure agreement. That's something that's usually done between different organizations so that they can talk freely about things that are private and confidential and ensure that both one or more of those parties in that particular case would not be telling anybody else what they saw. That's a non-disclosure agreement. If I was to bring, and I've done this many times, I bring in a new version of a firewall that nobody's seen before, maybe it's new software, and I talk about some of the new features, I require everybody in the room to sign a non-disclosure agreement so they won't talk about that to, I guess, ostensibly our competitors. Don't have to worry about that anymore, but something we really did have to consider when I was working in that organization. I don't have to worry about it anymore because I don't do that anymore. But the company obviously still has non-disclosure agreements, I'm sure, that they use. And although nobody answered the disaster recovery plan, that is what you would think it is. This is a plan that defines what we do should a disaster occur. It could be a big disaster, it could be a small disaster, but your organization probably has one of those as well. In this case, the only answer that made any sense is the one that 93% of you chose, an acceptable use policy. That was the answer we were looking for, and the 93% of you got that one absolutely correct. Well, as you've probably seen already, there's so much information on the Security Plus exam. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of objectives that you have to go through. And if you were to look at my course has 121 videos. It's over 15 hours of content. Now, I really do recommend you watch every bit of that information. All 15 hours plus will really provide you with every single piece of information that is listed in the exam objectives. But one of the things that people run into is they simply don't have time. Or maybe they like to skip over a couple of those, but you might still want the content. And so I've created a set of practice exams that does exactly that. My practice exams are designed to provide you with sort of a one-stop shop of information. This is a set of my course notes, one-stop shop for information. We'll get to practice exams in just a bit. Our course notes give us a breakdown of everything by video. So you can start at the very beginning with 1.1 security controls. Here's charts. Here's the text. Here are important graphics, important tables. I try to put as much information as possible into these course notes because this is what's going to help provide you with kind of a breakdown, a summary of everything that you just watched in the video. Now, obviously, they don't replace your book. They don't replace the videos, but it's a great summary that you can study from once you've gone through your book and once you've gone through your videos. A lot of great information in the course notes. This might be something that can help you as well. Not only do we have that PDF version of the course notes, as my laptop is falling down around me, but I also have a physical version of the course notes. It's exactly the same information, obviously, but you can see that it is now in a book form. Something that's a little more easy to take around. So you don't have to have a laptop. You don't have to be connected to the internet. I guess technically you could download the PDF as well and not be connected to the internet. Just something that might help you out if you're in the mood to study. And this is also something that helps us keep these videos going. As I mentioned in the pre-show, we're already working on the next generation of Security Plus exams, things that will be coming out next year. So this is something that helps keep us going as well. So a great way to support yourself and hopefully a great way to support us as well. You can learn more about it at professormesser.com/701CN. Let's do another multiple choice question, shall we? Let's go through this list. This next question is one that asks, an administrator is reviewing logs to determine exactly how much data a specific user transferred during the last 24 hours. Which component of the AAA framework is responsible for this information? Is it authentication, identification, accounting, attestation, or accounting? I have accounting twice in here. How did that happen? Where did that come from? We're skipping this one because I'm not even sure what the answer. The answer, here I'm giving you a gimme. It's one, thanks to me typing in the wrong thing. The answer is accounting. There we go. That was a quick one. But if you answered accounting, 85% of you answered accounting, 13% also answered accounting. So really, we got 98% of you to say the answer is accounting. I guess obviously it was accounting. And I think the chat room was right. Chat room says, I thought it might have been accounting, but instead I chose accounting. You could see how sometimes a live stream turns into just a mess. Just wondering what I was thinking when I typed things in. The AAA framework, just to summarize this, because we should really salvage something from this horrible question and answer that I put into this mix, is the AAA framework itself. You need to know AAA framework for your exam, by the way. Often we have a section of AAA that we don't even consider, but it's an important part of this. The first thing you have to provide is some type of identification. You have to put in your username, for example. Then you have to put in something else, an authentication factor, to prove that you really are who you say you are. And that extra piece is the authentication piece. So it might be a password. It might be a code that is sent to your chat, to an SMS, which is, by the way, a horrible multi-factor authentication method. Maybe it's something that is an app that's on your phone. Lots of different ways to do multi-factor authentication. And of course, we have a section of our course that talks about MFA, multi-factor authentication. Once we are logged in, once we authenticate ourselves and prove who we say we are, then we need to look at the authorization. What are we authorized to do when we hit the network? Do we have access to a particular database? Do we not have access to a particular database? That is something that is commonly defined by the administrators of that system. And then lastly, you may have seen this mentioned before in a question that we've seen recently of accounting. You might have heard of this. Accounting, it has an odd name because when you think about accounting, you often think about financials and people doing that. But we are also talking about accounting for what you are doing on the network. It is a document of your login time, a document of how much data was sent, how much data was received, and perhaps even what time you logged out. This is a very interesting database because this one can also help tell you when somebody is performing a brute force attack, because you're noticing a lot of failed authentications, and you will have that all documented in your accounting database. So you can actually do a report in the accounting database saying, how many times did someone log in with the wrong password? And it will tell you. That's what we use accounting for. So if you're one of the folks who answered accounting, or you answered accounting, you got that one absolutely right. Which one did I think it was? It was the last one, of course, but that's okay. Really, I'll take the one before that too. We'll take both of them to do accounting. Oh, somebody asked what accounting is again. Let me talk about accounting some more. No, we can go to another question. We can now go to the next one and just pretend none of this ever happened ever. I never make mistakes. I'm not sure what potentially would have occurred there. I don't even have anyone to blame but myself. I'm the only one who could have done that. So that's just how it works. Let's take another one where we have 5 different options available as an answer, shall we? An attacker uses a $50 device to copy the data from a high-level executive's badge while standing near them in a crowded elevator. Already, this doesn't make sense. The high-level executives never go into the same elevator that we do. Which of the following best describes this attack type? Would it be biometric spoofing, brute force, denial of service, RFID cloning, or on-path attack? There we go. We can choose between those 5 different options that I have seemingly typed in properly. We'll answer your question. Go to professormesser.com/QA, and you can tell me what you think the right answer happens to be. This is a real attack type. This is a real thing that can really happen, really. And if you think you know the answer, please use the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA to lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Instead, you want to go to that link that you see on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. PBQA. This is a very good example if you're someone who is kind of working through the details of Security Plus. All of these are different attack types, but we really, really need to know what they are. We really, really need to understand what those differences are. So make sure you are familiar, even if you happen to know the answer, or even if you don't, look through all of them. Make sure you know all of these, because I pull all of these answers directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. That will be certainly where you should go to learn more about what you should and should not know for the Security Plus exam. It's a great way to keep you on track, so you're studying exactly what's expected of you when you sit into that exam room. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asks, an attacker uses a $50 device to copy the data from a high-level executive's badge while standing near them in a crowded elevator. Which of the following best describes this attack type? Is it biometric spoofing, brute force, denial of service, RFID cloning, or on-path attack? Let's close our poll and see how we did. Again, big numbers. Not too surprised here. I tried to make a gimme or two on these as we were putting them in. But all of these attack types are important to know. RFID cloning got 95% of the vote. We got biometric spoofing, 4% of you. So good number of you wanted to biometric spoof that. And then 1% said an on-path attack. Nobody said denial of service, and nobody said brute force. RFID cloning is a significant and serious issue, something you should consider, because a lot of the things that we use as access tools, as maybe our access badge, as a key fob, are effectively just an RFID holder. You know, inside of your badge is an RFID chip. Inside of your key fob is an RFID chip. It's just a chip that identifies that particular key fob or that particular access badge. So as you are getting close to the reader for your access badge, this one shows somebody actually touching the reader. But in most cases, you don't even have to touch it. You just have to get really close. Well, that means you could maybe use a reader that you bought somewhere else to be able to get close. If somebody has it in their pocket, all you have to do is have it in your pocket. You get up close to that person with their reader, and you get a beep. You get a duplication of that RFID chip. You're able to capture that information. And then that takes just a moment to be able to grab that information from the RFID card or the RFID key fob that has. And now you've captured that information that you could then copy to a different RFID device very, very, very easily. In fact, this card may not be the legitimate ID card. This may be a clone of the RFID card that was in the pocket of the high-level executive inside of the elevator. This is a real attack that really does happen and really does work. So if you ever get into the field of doing some type of penetration testing, physical device testing, you'll probably see this being used. It's intriguing, the things you could do on the physical side. And this is another great reason why we highly recommend using multi-factor authentication. If all you need to do is just use your card to get into a door, that means somebody could clone it and then they would be able to get into the door. Along those same lines, they could steal your card, and before you even knew it was gone, they could get into that door. So what a lot of organizations will do is they will have a separate process. You not only have to scan your card, you then have to put in a personal identification number. Or not only do you have to scan your card, you have to put your finger over a fingerprint reader or a hand on a handprint reader. Those are very common to see. So multi-factor solves a lot of those problems that even if somebody did manage to perform an RFID cloning attack, they would not be able to use that in a practical sense. All they have is maybe half of the information they need to be able to make it through that door. Now, I guess they could wait for you to get into the door and watch you type the numbers in, or find some way to get around the fingerprint reader by doing some type of biometric spoofing. That is a good example of an attack type where you can combine those things together. An on-path attack generally refers to a network-based attack where you are sitting in the middle of a conversation and the attacker is able to capture that information, view that information, maybe even modify that information and send it on its way. That's a pretty significant attack, but is one that requires just the right scenario for it to work properly. Nobody chose brute force. Brute force attacks are usually someone trying to find someone's password by trying every possible combination until they find the right one. And then a denial of service is one where someone is making a device or a service unavailable by maybe overwhelming it or finding a vulnerability that prevents that device from working properly. That is what we would call a denial of service. In this case, of course, it's RFID cloning. 95% of you got that one absolutely correct. That's what we were talking about. So hopefully that gives you something to think about as you are protecting those badges that you carry around. Does your organization have an access front end like the one that we see here that would be susceptible to an RFID clone? There are access type systems now that are not susceptible to cloning. So you may have to think about what the different options might be. One of the things that I didn't mention at the beginning of this one, but it's something that we do in each of our study groups, is I like to give you the ability to earn a continuing education unit credit just for watching this video live or watching it on demand. I will send you an email that certifies that you are here for a 1-hour webinar category CEU. And the only thing you have to do is follow these instructions. You want to go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website and click the Contact Us link. In that Contact Us link, I want you to put the super secret code words of them. Well, first you'll bring up a form. You'll click Contact Us. It will ask you for your name. Put in your name. It will ask you for your email. Put in your email. And in the subject line of this, please put June 2026 Security Plus. In the body of the message on a line by itself, put the super secret code words of the month, RFID cloning, biometric spoofing. I know there's a lot of words in here, 4 separate words. You put all of those in there. You could put any other text in there that you would like, because I do read through all of these. But then you can also at that point go through and then make sure that you have, once you've gone through all of this, sent that in to me. You don't have to put anything else. You just put that single line of text, and then I'll have it available on my side. It takes me about a week to turn these around, but I will send you a digitally signed email that certifies that you are here for a 1-hour webinar category CEU. Let me give you those instructions again, because you must follow those instructions. If you do not follow those instructions, you will not get that email. So to earn your CEU, go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click Contact Us. In that Contact Us form, put your name, your email address. In the subject line, please put June 2026 Security Plus. And in the body of the message on a line by itself, put the super secret code words of the month, RFID cloning and biometric spoofing. All 4 of those. That will be exactly what you need to do to be able to earn a CEU. And I'll get that email out to you in about a week. We're near the top of the hour, so let's squeeze in a couple more questions, right? We got some more on this list. This next one, I guess if I put me in a different place, let's go up here. There we go. This question asks, an organization is migrating its security stack to a cloud-native model to ensure mobile users receive the same policy enforcement as an Office user. Which of the following would be the best choice for this requirement? Would it be software-defined networking, secure access service edge, site-to-site IPsec tunneling, next-generation firewall, or virtual private network concentrator? It's a lot to go through there. The question again asks, an organization is migrating its security stack to a cloud-native model to ensure mobile users receive the same security policy enforcement as Office users. Which of the following would be the best choice for this requirement? Is it software-defined networking, secure access service edge, site-to-site IPsec tunneling, next-generation firewall, or virtual private network concentrator? If you think you know the answer, use the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA to lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. See if you happen to know what this one happens to be. I know I've been giving you easy ones so far. We'll have to up the difficulty level a little bit on this one and see how you do. Maybe it's not difficult. Maybe I'm mistaken. We'll find out in just a moment, though. Lock in your answer, professormesser.com/QA. There is, just as a reminder, of course, at the top of the hour, we're not done yet. We go into our after show where I will answer questions that you submit to me. If you have a question about Security Plus or technology or the weather, I don't care what you ask. You can ask it at any time using that same link. You'll see a tab at the top where you can flip between answering the question I give you and submitting a question to me. That link again, professormesser.com/QA. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asks, an organization is migrating its security stack to a cloud-native model to ensure mobile users receive the same security policy enforcement as Office users. Which of the following would be the best choice for this requirement? Would it be software-defined networking, secure access service edge, site-to-site IPsec tunneling, next-generation firewall, and virtual private network concentrator? Well, I can't wait to see how we did with this one. Let's close our poll. Oh, we got a little bit of a rainbow. We see a little bit here. 44% of you say the answer is a secure access service edge. 23% said the answer was a virtual private network concentrator. We have 17% that say software-defined networking. 10% said site-to-site IPsec tunneling. And 6% say next-generation firewall. Well, is the answer one of these? Maybe it's the one that a plurality of you chose. Maybe it's one that is not. Maybe it's one of these single digits that came up. Let's see what the correct answer is. And it is secure access service edge is the answer that we were talking about, a SASE. The secure access service edge, it's kind of a term that was defined, I think, by Gartner. Well, industry analysts have a big say in how we call different technologies things, and they kind of came up with this idea. One of the challenges, of course, is that a lot of people had all of their IT in a data center that was in their building. That was many, many moons ago at this point. And now most everything, in many cases, has been put into the cloud. Well, we were able to secure everything really well when it was in the same room. We could add a firewall, we could have a proxy, an IPS, a URL filter. You could put all kinds of security technologies in because you knew everybody had to come into this room to be able to access any of that data. Well, now that's changed completely. Everything's in the cloud. In fact, it might not only be in one cloud service, it might be in multiple cloud services. People are now scattered all over the globe, connecting from home, connecting from somewhere other than work. How do we maintain that same level of security without having to deal with or have everything now spread all over the world? That creates a little bit more complexity to us, for what we're doing. So we have something called a secure access service edge. Some people refer to this as a next generation VPN, but it really goes well beyond the capabilities of that because we add additional security technologies. Instead of being in our data center, they're now in the cloud. So we see things like network as a service where we can create maybe an SD-WAN configuration. We have VPN connections going into this in the cloud. Then we have security as a service because you need some way to secure all of these technologies. And you may be using some type of DNS security. You might be adding in a secure gateway. There might be firewall as a service might be out there. And then, of course, we have to be concerned about the user experience. We want them to have access to the data wherever they might be, but we also want to make sure all of this is secure. So really multiple security technologies, whether you're coming into a public cloud, a data center, maybe it's software as a service at a third party, or maybe it's just internet access. And then it's anybody trying to access those from the corporate office, from their home, from a coffee shop, on mobile devices in a different country. Who knows where they are or what they're doing? We need to make sure everything maintains that level of security. And this is a methodology, an architecture that provides that. One of the challenges with this SASE service is that there's a lot that you have to put into the cloud to make this work. So it has been a little bit of a challenge for people to simply do this forklift upgrade from their data center and suddenly now get everything into the cloud. Not quite exactly the scenario people were hoping for, and there's a lot of money you'd have to spend to make that happen. So what we've seen is that there's been a different level of security. You'll learn more about this later on, but we'll certainly, this is one of the most popular styles of cloud-based security here that really does provide our end users with the same level of security that we have for our data center, even now while all the data is in the cloud. Secure Access Service Edge was the answer that we were looking for. It's the one that 44% of you chose. So the plurality of you got that one absolutely right. 23% said a virtual private network concentrator, a VPN concentrator. VPN concentrators are devices that are kind of the front end to our encrypted tunnels that we're creating back to that original site. Usually it's our home office. A VPN concentrator is certainly important. We probably even do this whenever we're working through the details of a VPN. But a VPN by itself doesn't provide any additional security, especially for services that might be in the cloud. So although VPNs are important, and indeed they are part of the Secure Access Service Edge, it's probably more of a VPN concentrator in the cloud, but that only adds a piece to this puzzle. It's not the best choice for the entire scenario that we're describing here. We also have 17% of you that said software-defined networking, which doesn't even necessarily have to do with an external cloud. It's a way to, in software, define how we would set up these cloud-based services, which in itself doesn't really provide any additional security. It's really more of a blueprint on how you build services in a cloud environment. So not exactly the security policy enforcement that we were hoping for. 10% of you said site-to-site IPsec tunneling, kind of the same scenario as your VPN concentrator. Yes, it creates a tunnel. Yes, it encrypts the data in that tunnel, but it doesn't provide security policy enforcement. It's really just providing you a secure pathway to get to the cloud service. How do you secure things after that? That's a little bit more of a challenge. And then lastly, next generation firewall. Although our Secure Access Service Edge does have firewall as a service right there. It's our software-based, cloud-based firewall. It's in there, but a firewall by itself doesn't provide all of the capabilities that we talked about in this particular question, where mobile users have the same security policy enforcement as people that are in the office. That's only part of the puzzle. If you want the best choice for that requirement, it would be the Secure Access Service Edge, and that's what 44% of you chose. That's the answer we were looking for, and that's the one you need to know if this topic happens to come up on your Security Plus exam. I know we're at the top of the hour, but let's do another question, shall we? I'm going to give you a question that's a little different in its format. I don't have it set up in the Vevox front end that we are using right here in this graphical front end, but I'll step you through it here. Just remember, of course, please no answers in the chat room. Even though we're not answering in Vevox, you still cannot answer in the chat room. Do not do that. This question is not in Vevox because it's one that we're going to take directly from my practice exams book. I spoke about this briefly earlier. This is a book that contains, it's a big book, 381 pages of questions and answers. There are 3 separate practice exams in this book. This is the physical version of the book. I also have the digital version of the book that I'll be showing to you. This is a book that has both multiple choice questions and performance-based questions. So this can be pretty useful for trying to prepare for your exam. Obviously, you would probably use this once you've watched the videos, you've read your book, you've done some labs, and you really want to test yourself to see if you're ready for the exam. One of the things I ran into when I started looking at practice questions on the internet is a lot of the questions I saw were out of scope for the current exam. They were outdated, or the answers they were given were completely wrong, or in many cases, the questions were not written with the same style or the same tone as the actual exam. So one of the things I did was create my own set of questions where I tried to give it a similar style and a similar readability as the actual exam. Now, obviously, these are questions that I wrote. These are not actual exam questions, but I wanted to give you a feel of an actual exam question, and people are telling me that I did a pretty good job of that. So you're really the best ones to tell me if I am or not. So I think my mission was accomplished on that. So I have for you a question from my practice exams book. This is a PDF version of that practice exams book. This is page 143 of the book, question B36, and it asks, a company is concerned about security issues at their remote sites. Which of the following would provide the IT team with more information of potential shortcomings? Would it be a gap analysis, a policy administrator, change management, or a dependency list? So we have 4 options there that are available. Now, this is a PDF, so if you're using a tablet and you have a stylus, you can write on this page and save it. It's not restricted. I don't prevent you from doing that. I hate it when you use a PDF and it blocks you from doing things. So you won't see that here. I'm in just a PDF reader on my side. I'm just using the Apple built-in PDF reader because I'm on a Mac, but I could download and use the Adobe PDF reader as well. Both of these work the same. And I've got a way to annotate here. So if I'm looking at this and I'd like to write some things on the screen or add some text or put some information on that page, you can annotate and save this. So when you come back to this page, everything will be there as you left it. Now, you'll notice that I have a quick answer on page 161. That just tells you whether the answer is A, B, C, or D. But I also have what I call a detailed answer page. And this really is the secret sauce of this particular Q&A. This is what differentiates this book from other Q&A that you would find on the internet. That detail page is on page 199. Now, obviously, you can see I'm on page 143. Another thing I hate doing with PDFs is scrolling through on a tablet or having to use my mouse wheel to scroll all over the place. So I built in some hyperlinks here. You can see my cursor changes into a little hand, and it will pop to that page 199 in my book. I'll click that, and it just moves right to page 199. So here's our question again. A company's concerned. Is it gap analysis, policy administrator, etc.? And it says the answer is A, gap analysis. Now, of course, I tell you why gap analysis is the right answer. It says a gap analysis is a formal process comparing the current security posture with where a company would like to be. This often examines many different aspects of the overall security environment. Great. My problem, though, is I often get these wrong. And in my mind, that's a great opportunity to learn. That's a great opportunity not only to understand why I got it wrong, I want to understand why I got it right, and then I want to understand more about the wrong answer. So in my practice exam book, every incorrect answer is documented. So you can see why policy administrator is not the right answer. You can see why change management is not the right answer, and I describe why the dependency list is not the right answer. So it's almost like you're getting 4 different topics on a single practice question, which I guarantee you're not getting from free questions that are available on the internet. Not only that, if you read this question, you're thinking, I don't even know what you're talking about. Is it a different language? Where did you get these terms from? I don't know what you mean. I have a list right at the bottom that has a QR code if you're doing this maybe on a mobile device or a PDF, or you can simply click the link and it will take you to my video that is in the SY0-701 course, Objective 1.2. The video name is Gap Analysis, and then it will simply take you to that page where you can then watch the video on gap analysis that covered this particular question and answer for what we're doing here. Then you can come back, read through the question again, and that's what a gap analysis is. Now I understand it. Now I know why that's the right answer. Now I know why change management was not the right answer. But if I get a question about change management on the exam, I know more about it because there was a description here in this particular question breakdown. That is part of this. And we, of course, want to take more questions now, but I'm here on page 100 and some, 199. Here, way down in this book, I'm still on page 199, but that's okay. Most PDF readers have a back button, just like your browser does. Mine's up here in the upper left. There's the back arrow that's right there. So I'm going to click that back arrow, click, and we're back to where we started. And I can simply go to the next question that's in my list. That is my practice exams book. Hopefully that's a book that you can see might have some value if you're ready to study, you're preparing to take your exam. This is a good final check. Not only do I have multiple choice questions in here, there are performance-based questions in here. We've got both the detailed explanations and summaries for every single question that's in this book. This did take a while to write, so there's a lot in there. It's a big, big book. You have the choice of getting the digital edition or the physical edition, and if you get the course notes and the practice exams together, you get a little bit of a price break. Somebody in the chat earlier said, wait, I bought the digital one. I didn't even know there was a physical book available. There's a little tab up above the price sheet on that page where you can choose physical or digital. But if you want the physical and you've already bought the digital, just open a help desk ticket from your member login and tell me that you'd like the upgrade, and it's only a difference in cost. You're not paying extra for that. So it's as if you bought the physical edition from the very beginning. So you don't lose anything. There's no money out of pocket for doing that. You didn't make a mistake. I can absolutely send you a physical edition of this as well, and you just pay the difference. Just open a help desk ticket and say, hey, I bought the digital. I want the physical. Send me the information. I'll send you a link and instructions. Makes it very easy to just click, and you've now got the physical edition on the way. something that might be able to help you quite a bit. This is only part of our Success Bundle. We also give options for downloadable audio, downloadable video, and other features, along with our exam hacks. All of this is available on our website. Follow the link right there, professormesser.com/securitype, to learn about all of those things. This is also an important document that you might want to grab as well. This one's free. Oh, got your attention, didn't I? The free document that we have here is our exam objectives. The exam objectives are a great way to know exactly what will be asked of you on the exam. This is probably one of my most frequently asked questions, is how am I supposed to prepare for this? This is the actual exam objectives. You can see that it's got a list of, here we are in the section 1, or what they call domain 1, which is the general security concepts, where I need to compare and contrast various types of security controls in section 1.1, and it gives me all the different categories. It gives me control types. You can see here where I was doing some annotation. Section 1.2, I'm scrolling all over the place. I apologize. Let's put it in something that will allow me to scroll a little better. And maybe if I came back out of this so you could read it a little better, that would be good too. Section 1.1 talks about those control types. And then we've got section 1.2, where we summarize fundamental security concepts like confidentiality, integrity, and availability. You've got AAA in here. You've got zero trust. There's your gap analysis right there. We've talked about that already today. They're in the exam objectives. This is how I know what to create for my training, because CompTIA sticks to this practically 100% of this exam. There's a lot that you could pull from this, and it's downloadable for free from the CompTIA website. I will give you a little bit of a warning. I don't know if a warning is the right way to describe it. It can be hard to find the link for this. So if you go to professormesser.com/objectives, which is the link that you see here on your screen, you'll get this page. It's the CompTIA exam objectives page. And you can see that they're on the CompTIA website under each one of these sections. But I've got this screen here that has a breakdown of the entire page, this graphic that's here. And you can see that I say, scroll down to this red box, because that's where you want to put in your name to get the free exam objectives. Now, if you don't see the red box, you may need to enable cookies, disable pop-up blockers, or remove some other type of filter to see that red box. Now, where is that? Let's click on Security Plus, CompTIA Security Plus Objectives. I'm going to click that link that is on my page. It will take me over to the CompTIA website. And on the security page, notice there's no place here to download the objectives. Let me keep going. They do have this red box here that they put on the right side. Did they change where it is on the screen? I'm going to have to change my graphic for the Security Plus. I think they tried to put it where it'd be easier to find. So just scroll down this page until you find the red box. I don't know if they updated the A Plus or Network Plus yet either. So that's new. I'm glad to see it, because if you put I've already put in my email address, but as soon as you put in your email address, you can download those immediately. And you can see the Security Plus objectives are available in English, Japanese, Portuguese, and Spanish, or Thai, depending on which exam you're planning to take. So another great way to get exactly the information you need to know for your exam. And it's free. I love free stuff. And you should absolutely, that should be the first thing you download, really, is your exam objectives. It's a great way to know exactly what will be expected of you on the exam. And I told you earlier with the performance-based questions that if you've studied the objectives, doesn't matter how they ask the question, that's what I'm talking about. Those are the objectives that I'm referring to. Find out more about those, go to professormesser.com/objectives. We do one of these study groups every month. And of course, we have our after show coming up after this, where I will answer your questions. So stick around for that. But if you'd like to join us for other live streams, we have them already scheduled for July. We have A Plus study groups on the 7th and the 9th of July. We've got our Network Plus study group scheduled for the 17th. And the next Security Plus study group is on the 22nd of July. You'll want to come back for that one as well. If you want to ever keep track of this, maybe you're watching this video and we're well after July, because that's how time works. You can always check the calendar for the latest updates. Go to professormesser.com/calendar, and you'll see when our next live stream will be. We'd love for you to join us. We always have a good time when we do these study groups. As I mentioned, we're not done yet. Stick around for the after show, where I'm going to answer questions that you submit to me. It's the part where I never know what to expect. So I'm looking forward to going through that. Don't forget about our weekly Security Plus study group questions. We have those available on X, on YouTube as our entire course. We have our Discord for training. Everything is on our website. Go to professormesser.com. You'll see the social media links and the icons available on our site. That'll be an easy one to do. Don't forget about our discounted vouchers. If you're in the US, Canada, or US territory, do not pay full price at the CompTIA website. The vouchers on my site are the same vouchers, literally the same vouchers, but you don't have to pay as much. How does that work? Well, we've been a platinum partner of CompTIA for a very long time, and they're able to provide us with a discount that we can then pass along to you. Might be a really nice thing to have. ProfessorMesser.com/vouchers. And of course, our course notes, our practice exams, our success bundle, and so much more is on our site. You can find out more at ProfessorMesser.com/701SB for success bundle, or simply use the main menu on the website. Well, this brings us to the end of another study group first hour. Stick around for the after show coming up in just a moment. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time on the Security Plus study group. Thanks, everybody. Okay, this is the part of the study group where I need to take a sip so that I can have the ability to talk to you for the next hour. We're going to do that. Okay. Oh, single malt. Okay. It's not single malt. Oh, a lot of good questions in that study group. When I'm putting together the questions, I often think, is this going to be a gimme? Is it not going to be a gimme? Sometimes I can guess. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes I'm surprised. Sometimes I'm not. But a very good example of where we would run into those things. This is the after show. There's no specific format for the after show. The after show is more about Q&A. And if you go out to ProfessorMesser.com/QA, you will see that you can submit questions for the study group at any time. And you can see I'm be moderating some of those as we go through this list. This is one of those cases where I'm going to be sifting through the things that you put into that list, and we'll be able to figure those out as we go through all of this. So that is your link. I guess I should put the link up. There it is. If you'd like to submit a question, you can do so at any time. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA to submit your question into that list. I'll be looking at this list on my side. I guess I should click on those so we can get this thing started, get these pieces going. A lot of questions already have come in. Thank you so much for submitting these. A lot of great questions that are already here. What I'd like to do, I take questions on anything. So you can ask me about technology, about the industry, about anything else that you might want to use. But I want to focus on a lot of technology, but sometimes you have an interesting question that goes outside the scope of that, and I'm more than happy to address those as well. Let's talk about some of these. Let's just jump into it with a question from Derek. Derek asks, I take my Security Plus tomorrow. Okay, pressure's on, right, Derek? You've got this one. No problem. You've now got your objectives. You've gone through some study groups. You've got access to the training videos. Hopefully you have a good book. Maybe you've done some labs. The question is, how different are the performance-based questions on the Security Plus compared to Network Plus and A Plus? Well, I guess there's a lot of things that are the same, obviously, because when you talk about performance-based questions, these are really just, as I've been saying, they're simply questions that are not multiple choice. That's it. So any way that a question could be asked, it's a universal group of things that it could be anything. Anything in the universe could be asked of you in whatever format they would like to ask of you. So in many ways, that same randomization of question types from A Plus and Network Plus also applies to Security Plus. But there are some differences in topics, of course. One of the biggest ones that I can immediately think of top of mind is that A Plus, especially with Core 2, has a lot of command lines in it. There's a lot of Linux command lines you need to know. There's a lot of Windows command lines you need to know. Well, that makes for some pretty interesting performance-based questions because you can come up with scenarios where you see something on the screen and you got to type something in and it provides more information about that. But that is one of those examples where you really do have to have some type of commands to type in. Same thing with Network Plus. Network Plus has a lot of commands, ping and trace route and path ping and a lot of other commands you need to know for Network Plus. But what commands do you need to know for Security Plus? Well, let's go to the way that you would know that is you would look at the Security Plus exam objectives. That's timely, isn't it? We were just talking about the objectives. So let's go back to the objectives. There they are. So if I look at these objectives, and this is section 1.1 through 1.4, section 2.1 through 2.5. I'm looking for command lines. Nope, not there. How about section 3? How about command lines? No command lines there. This one, section 4, command lines. No command lines there. How about section 5? More section 4. And then section 5, security program management oversight. No command lines there. So Security Plus doesn't have any command lines that you would need to know. So you're not going to get any questions about command lines on that. So a lot of people even say, well, what about port numbers? There's no port numbers listed in this list either. So I would recommend, if you're going to be spending your time to study for performance-based questions or really anything, that you focus on these. So I think that's an important part of this, is really understanding what is expected of you. If you talk to a lot of people on the internet, you get a lot of different answers. And many of the answers I've seen, especially on the CompTIA subreddit and in other places, is a lot of the times the advice people give are from a version of the exam that they took 10 years ago. It's a different exam now with different exam objectives. So the things that they had to learn are different than the things that you have to learn. There's a bit of a challenge. So you should always confirm by going directly to the exam objectives. This really is the best way to ensure that you are studying the right content. Pretty important to have that there. Now, what should you study? A lot of people, I say, watch the video series, obviously. Every single objective is covered in my video series. It is a comprehensive video course. Nothing is left out. A good book might be an idea. Books teach in different ways. Videos teach in one way, books teach in a different way, and I think that's a good combination between those two. It's not an either or. It's really, you need to put them together. And then I also think labs are very good. One of the labs that we recommend are the CompTIA CertMaster labs. They have labs that are virtualized environments that take some of the topics from the Security Plus exam and put it into a Windows or a Linux front end, and you can now work through those labs in the CertMaster lab. CertMaster is kind of CompTIA's brand name for the different training products they have. So they have a CertMaster Study. That's their ebook. CertMaster Practice are their practice questions. CertMaster Labs is their lab breakdown. And again, you could buy those directly on the CompTIA website. They're also at a discount on my site. So there's a great place, another great opportunity to save a little money. Go to the main menu of the Professor Messer website. Underneath Security Plus, there's a Start Here for Security Plus. That Start Here page has a list of all of the CompTIA discounts right there at the bottom of the page. So no matter which one of those you're looking for, there might be an option there you might want to consider when working through it. These objectives become really important when you're trying to figure out what will be expected of you for multiple choice questions and performance-based questions. So that's another great example of where you might want to consider looking through the objective list. And the more you know about the objectives, the easier it becomes to answer the performance-based questions, because as I've already said, it doesn't matter how they ask the question. If you already know the content, you'll be able to answer it very easily. One of the biggest pieces of feedback I always get from people is that they go to take their exam, they come back and they say, I was really worried about the performance-based questions. They were easy. I overthought what I thought they were going to be. It was more of a fear of the unknown. And as it turns out, they were relatively easy as long as you knew what they were asking about. And I think that's the important part, is as long as you know the exam objectives, now every question becomes relatively simple because it doesn't matter how they ask it. That's my biggest recommendation for you. If anybody is trying to work through the details of that, pretty important to consider if you're ever in that worry of what am I going to be faced with? Don't worry about it. If you know the content, doesn't matter how they ask the question. That's really the important part of that. Let's keep going through our list of questions that you have. We have a lot that we can go through in this list because you keep putting more and more questions in. Keep putting them in. We'll go through as many as we can before we run out of time here. Let's talk about RAID. RAID. This is a question from David. Put this up. David asks, I was confused while watching the video discussing RAID. It says, in security, are there certain RAID levels more commonly used or beneficial than the others? This is something that comes up quite a bit if you're working through some of those. Whenever I start looking at RAID, which is a redundant array of independent or inexpensive disks, depending on where you learned it from, there's a focus on RAID to provide uptime and availability. That's what RAID does, meaning if we lose a drive, a physical drive fails, can we still have the data available? And that is probably the most important part of the IT security role, is we have to be secure, but we also have to be available. So how do we mix these things together so that we don't lose data, data is safe and protected, but data is also available for the people who need to use it? And really, that's the job of most people in IT. If you're a network administrator, if you're a workstation administrator, if you're a server administrator, or if you're in the IT security department, you still need to maintain uptime and availability. And that's what RAID does for us. The RAID considerations that we would have for security are pretty much the same considerations that we have for networking or for the A+ RAID that we need to learn about. We're just maintaining uptime and availability. There's really no security aspect to different RAID formats. For example, RAID 1 is not any more or less secure than RAID 5. That's not what RAID works along those lines. So I think if you're somebody who is working through and trying to understand, how does RAID work anyway? How does that breakdown affect security? It's really more about uptime and availability, because that is an important part of security. We have to add in the security piece without people knowing. And if we bring down a service or we make a service unavailable, they're going to know. And that's an important part to what we are doing from a security perspective. So there's no one RAID level that is better or worse than another. There's not a RAID level that is more secure or less than another. It's really about what you need as far as the number of drives you have, the access to that data, how much storage you have across all of those drives. That's really the important part. So don't worry about it being more or less secure. Think about it being more or less available. And that's where you would decide which RAID type you would use. Let's keep going through our list. More questions that we have. This is, story time. So we were talking earlier about acceptable use policies. And I was starting a story about acceptable use policies. I probably have witnessed violations of companies' acceptable use policies hundreds of times, easily. Hundreds of companies acceptable use policy, because, well, I'll tell you why. It's sort of a story. This is from my good friend Anonymous, who asks, regarding acceptable use policies, what's the best way to see if an employee broke it? So as I mentioned earlier, an acceptable use policy is effectively a description of how you should be using your laptop, your mobile phone, your tablet, or any other technology that is provided to you by a company. This is usually a document that you receive when you start with an organization, and it's usually one that you sign. It might be part of your employee handbook, and you've signed that I've read the employee handbook and I agree to everything inside of it, or it may be a separate document, specifically acceptable use policy, and you have to sign that one separately. That means that you've read it. You have agreed that you will follow that policy. That policy usually is the things you can think about. Don't go to websites that contain not safe for work things that have to do with gambling. I'm going to pick easy ones. Things that have to do with maybe going out and purchasing things at work. Maybe some employers don't like you to go to shopping sites. Maybe some of these sites that are out now where you're effectively gambling on the results of something that happens in the world. Maybe that's a place that your employer doesn't want you to go because it's more like gambling. Or maybe it is an inappropriate type of human experience that you would be visiting. I think we all know what we're referring to there. So most companies don't want you to visit sites where people aren't wearing any clothing. So this is the challenge you have as a security person, is you have to be professional about these things if you happen to see them. And you will see things as a security professional that will, I shouldn't say shock you, but is surprising what people think they should be doing at work or where they should be going at work. But how do you know if somebody violated the acceptable use policy? Well, one of the things that I've mentioned before is one of the last corporate jobs I had was working as a systems engineer for Palo Alto Networks. This is when next generation firewalls, which were created by Palo Alto Networks. Before Palo Alto Networks, there were no next generation firewalls. They created the technology. So this was a lot of fun because up to that point, the level of visibility that we had on a network was very limited. You had to maybe plug in a protocol analysis tool like a sniffer or Wireshark just to be able to watch the packets go by. And that did not necessarily present to us a full and complete description of where people were going on the internet and what they were viewing. But with next generation firewalls, that changed everything, where we're able to plug in to the network and instantly see everywhere people are going on the internet, what applications they're using. Are they posting to Facebook? Are they reading Facebook? Are they going to a website marked as gambling? Are they going to a website marked as not safe for work? Not only that, if they are going to a not safe for work site, we can see exactly the URL that they're going to, and in many cases, click through to it to see the images that they are seeing. We can reconstruct the page that they are visiting. Now, you can imagine in a meeting, I'm not going to be reconstructing people's web pages because that just becomes uncomfortable for everyone in the room. But we very often will bring up a description of the URL that people are visiting. And I know you don't know this, but many of those URLs are very descriptive and you can immediately see the thing that they happen to be visiting. And as I mentioned, going through and demonstrating this, the way that we normally do this is I will bring the hardware in, we'll plug into the network, we'll go to lunch, we'll come back. So in an hour, we look through everything that we compiled during that hour-long time frame. And people sometimes at lunch go places that they normally don't go during the workday. So we get to see really interesting things. More than one meeting has been stopped where people said, could you just hold on a moment, where someone will leave the room after viewing this information to find that individual, because we're of course matching up not only IP address of a device, but we're integrating into their Active Directory infrastructure. So we literally see their domain name and username associated with their network traffic. So it's obvious where that is coming from. And I will say that every single network I ever connected to, except for one, every network I ever connected to had some level of acceptable use violation. Every single one. Maybe it was the time frame. Maybe it's that people didn't know people would have that level of visibility. Maybe the company wasn't using any type of filtering and was just expecting the employees to act nicely. In any case, every single meeting we had, it was very easy to go, and let's go to this page, and here's a big list of all of those sites that people are going to and their names and their IP addresses. This is human nature, and that's one of the things that happens. Unfortunately, as a security professional, you will sometimes be put into situations where you are seeing things that are not just unacceptable for work, but are quite literally illegal to visit on the internet. There's a lot of things out there on the internet that could be illegal, that could be a felony in the United States. And more than once, I have had to process that data and make it available. People in the chat room are going, are they fired when they do that? Well, for some of the non-safe for work, not usually. It's usually one of these situations like, don't do that anymore, okay? You haven't heard anything, but do that at home, not here, you're good. But for the things that are quite literally against the law, then yeah, we will have to contact the authorities. They'll have to come in. We'll have to provide evidence of these things. And on at least one occasion, I have come back to a company as a follow-up meeting, and the person that was there previously is now part of the legal system. And eventually that person did go to prison for the things they were doing on the corporate network. That's the type of environments and things that you will run into as an IT security professional. And you need to be prepared for that. You have a responsibility to take care of your company and take care of the data, but you also have a responsibility to society, if you want to look at it from that perspective. And protecting people who are innocent in our society is also an important part of that. Unfortunately, that's something that you may very well be pulled into. So those are things you have to think about. It goes sometimes beyond the acceptable use policy, and it is something you have to consider if you're planning to get into this business and you're planning to get into this part of IT. Now, maybe if you work in networking, it's not as big of a problem. Maybe if you work with a Linux operating systems or Windows operating systems or Active Directory or data center administration or whatever it is, maybe you don't get into a lot of that. But for security, we very often are pulled into those types of things. And there's a level of professionalism and a series of processes you have to follow to make sure that you capture that information and put it into a form that can then be used later. Because somebody may be going to jail. Somebody may be going to prison because of those things, as sad as that is. I wish that wasn't the case, but occasionally you do run into a scenario like that. So there's a little story from the field. There's a little something. That's an uncomfortable story and a sad one, but those are some of the things that you really do run into and become a bit more of a problem. Let's go to more questions that you have. Let's take this up a notch, shall we? Let's do this. More that we have here. And working through these, let's talk about IT security. Let's talk about how this works. Babatunde, good question. Why is getting a job with a master's degree in cybersecurity hard? What's up with that? I do see this kind of as a trend. This is something that I think has been misunderstood either by the people who are the instructors, the educational side, or maybe it's a misunderstanding by the people that are getting the degrees. Cybersecurity, the term cybersecurity, isn't very informational. It's like saying, I'm going into medicine. Okay, what are you going to be someone working in as a tech? Are you going to be a phlebotomist? Are you going to be a nurse? Are you going to be a nurse practitioner? Are you going to be a doctor? Are you going to be a specialist? The world of medicine's huge. There's all kinds of things you could be. When people say, I'm going to get into cybersecurity, similar problem. Are you getting into the IT security side? Are you interested in maybe the computer science side of cybersecurity, where you're developing secure applications? Are you getting into cryptography? Are you getting into maybe penetration testing? Are you doing physical testing? Are you creating security policies? Are you doing firewall conversions? Just goes on and on and on, doesn't it? There's a lot of different things you can do in the world of cybersecurity. And a master's degree in cybersecurity kind of gives you a lot of different parts of all of those, if you will. I don't know that there's a real good direct link to any specific cybersecurity piece when you're talking about a college or formal education degree in cybersecurity. And for those of you, just so we're aware, you probably don't hear it through the mic that I have here, but outside of our studio, it is storming right now. There's a lot of lightning. There's a lot of thunder, as things tend to do. We're based here in Central Florida, so that is what's going through right now. So if we lose a network connection, I will strive to get that connection back. I do have a 5G backup now, so I don't want this to be our chance to use it, but I do have a way that if I lose my primary internet, it will automatically switch over to the 5G. So we'll see what happens there anyway, should that occur. Hopefully it will not. Just to let you know. So the problem with cybersecurity, as that term implies there, is that you usually in an organization work up to the level of IT security. And I'm only specifically going to speak about the IT security side of this. This is the group of people that are maintaining the security of your networks. They're probably configuring your VPN configurations. They're doing not only site-to-site VPNs, but they're configuring perhaps your client-based VPNs. Maybe they're setting up your cloud-based security. They're maintaining and watching for your firewall logs. They're doing reports on authentications. They're collecting data and sifting through those for attacks against your network. They're trying to keep your data safe, and they're trying to keep all of you safe. But you usually work up to that level in an organization. To be able to work at that level of IT security, you need a very good understanding of operating systems. You need a very good understanding of networking, almost an expert level understanding of those things. That is years of experience to get to that level. You have to really work through understanding how to manage Windows, how to configure Active Directory, how Linux is supported and configured, and how all of those operating systems are protected. Then you have to look at the networking side. How does routing work? How does switching work? How do you design a network? How do you modify and make a network more resilient? How do you build in different network connections? What about the wide area network? What about access to the cloud? How do we put security in the cloud? That's sort of a networking side of things. A huge part of IT security is networking. And very often you have to become an expert level in networking. If you've not read through and really understood packet captures should be a second language for you. You should be able to speak it as well as your primary language. And if you can't look through a packet capture and immediately start to pick things out from that, you're not ready for cybersecurity yet, because you have to build that foundation and effectively level up into the world of IT security. So I think maybe people aren't ready for that. They go out and get a formal degree in cybersecurity, whatever that means for whatever educational group that is providing that degree. But they may not realize they can't just get out of college and go immediately work for an IT security group. It does not commonly work that way. You would really start at the bottom and work your way up through years of experience to be even considered for a role that's at that level of IT security. Maybe you're able to start at least on a security role where you're working with a security operations center, a SOC, SOC. The security operations center, you would at least maybe be first level support there for security operations center. And with a cybersecurity degree, you'd be perfect for that type of role. An organization would love to put you in because it's kind of an entry level role, but it has kind of a security slant. A little bit different than if you worked in a network operations center or a NOC, and very different than if you worked maybe with operating systems and working with Linux or data centers types of things. So when people say, why is it so hard to get a job in cybersecurity right out of college? It's because there aren't a lot of cybersecurity jobs that you can get out of college. They don't exist. They aren't a thing. That doesn't mean there aren't any. I've already mentioned the Security Operations Center. That's a very good example of one. But it is very difficult to break into security without already having a well-established foundation of experience. And that is why, if you're interested in security, I loved working in IT security. Something different all the time. There was always new technologies and new attacks and new mitigations, and there was always something to learn. Every day was different. Every day was a new exciting thing to see. And that's what I loved about it. And that's one of the reasons I created what we do here, is because I wanted you to be able to experience what I experienced in these roles, where once you come up to that level, you've now been in the industry for a bit. You've now established yourself as a technical, knowledgeable person. You've leveled up into doing that. And you've now, because you have this very well-honed knowledge, you are also more valuable to an organization and therefore will be paid more in those organizations, which then gives you more flexibility for supporting yourself, for supporting your family, for getting a higher wage and being able to do more with that money. So it's a win-win, but you have to work up to that level. So that's why I think I want to encourage you to follow that dream, to follow those roles to be able to get there. But you need to get to that point by building the foundation. So really your degree in cybersecurity is just the first step. Now learn everything you can about Linux. Now learn everything you can about Windows and Active Directory. Now learn everything you can about networking and every protocol you can get your hands on, every protocol decode you can see. Learn everything you can about that. Then you will be ready to step into the shoes of an IT security professional. That is what I highly encourage you to do. And it is worth the path. It is worth the hard work. It is worth getting there, but you have to get there up into that role. So that's why I would recommend that piece. I think if you think you're skipping a step by doing that, by getting a degree in cybersecurity, it certainly helps, but it may not necessarily be skipping very much. Now, you may be disappointed in that. You may have already earned this cybersecurity degree and you're thinking, well, I got this degree and now I can't even get a job doing that degree. Well, let me tell you my story. I got a degree in business management. So there's a good case where I got out of school and did not have a management position waiting for me. In fact, I was ill-equipped to be in any type of management. I would argue I'm still ill-equipped to be in any type of management. However, I found that I was more interested on the technical side of things. So the first job I got out of college was working as a field service technician. So it was technology, it was PCs, but it was doing things where I would hop in my car and I would drive to the customer and I would upgrade the memory, replace the hard drive, install something, replace something, fix something. And then I'm off to the next one. So I didn't use my degree at that level. However, a 4-year degree, even a 2-year degree in the US, that's an associate in arts degree, an AA degree, or bachelor's degree, which is a 4-year degree. I guess master's would be more like a 5 or 6-year degree, generally speaking. Those degrees prove to an employer a number of different things. First, you made it through the degree process, so you've got some skills there. You're pretty smart. We figured that you're smart enough to get through the university program or the educational system to get that degree. That's great. And employers like that. They like that a lot. They also realize because you're able to do that, you're very trainable. That's effectively what college is. They're just training you on a number of different topics. Now, if they can train you, then we can train you. So you're somebody who we can put into almost any position and you'll figure it out because that's what you've been doing the last 4 to 6 years of your college career, if you want to think of it that way. The other piece that you'll often run into is there's more lightning going on outside. I don't know how long this will be going on, quite honestly. The other piece that you'll often run into, especially with a degree type scenario, employers see that and they will be able to take advantage of at least some aspect of the things you have learned. I don't think we were really able to do that when I went from business management to working as a field service tech. There wasn't a lot of overlap. But there probably is quite a bit of overlap if you have a degree in cybersecurity and you get that first job in IT. There's going to be a lot of technologies you're already at least familiar with at a very high level and maybe to some degree a more detailed level. So that's why I mention don't be dismayed that you can't get an IT security job first thing. Don't worry about that. Just get any IT job first thing. It is so hard to get that very first job in IT. It is really difficult just to get your foot in the door, as they say. But whatever you can find, go put your foot in that door. Go take that first job. You may be thinking to yourself, I have a degree in cybersecurity. Why would I take a help desk position? Why would I take a remote technician position? That seems very beneath me. Really? Because you're not getting paid anything right now. Just thought I'd bring that up. You're making nothing and you're getting no type of experience at all by not having a job. So definitely go have a job, go get that job and do things with it. I think that's going to be super important that you look at the IT as a complete holistic piece. And even if a security job isn't available for you now, it will be in the future. So go get whatever job's there now, especially in today's job market. If somebody offers you a position, the answer is yes. We could talk money maybe also, but yes, I want that job. If you want me for the job, I want the job. Go get the job because now once you've got a position in technology, you could start leaning in whatever direction interests you at the time. And it's one of the great benefits of IT, in my opinion, is that I started as a field service tech delivering printer cables, replacing hard drives. I would show up and they go, this new monitor and it's green. this monitor's nothing but green. And I unplug it and all the pins are bent. And I just fix the pins and plug it back in. Now all the colors work. 5 minutes, I'm off to the next thing. And I've thought to myself, I got a 4-year degree in business management and I'm just straightening pins. This is so beneath me. But then you start thinking, wait, they're paying me to straighten pins. This is fantastic. This is the best job ever. And if you approach it from a different perspective, you'll find there's an opportunity. There's an opportunity in everything. Even the bad jobs I got, there were opportunities. You always learn something from what you were doing. So my goal, and whatever I've got a job like that, is there were always opportunities. They would want to send you to training to learn a new thing, or they want you to sit with their networking expert to help them on a network migration. Great. I don't know anything I'm doing. What is this box? Oh, it's a switch. Wonder what that does. Okay, we'll plug that in. And you sort of learn in the field as you go. That's what you should be doing, is taking advantage of that. And I think if you're someone who has gone through a formal education and you're thinking, I'm not going to be able to apply this, you will be applying some aspect of it. I promise you. It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but you will be well positioned when that time comes. My last position, I mentioned earlier, I worked for Palo Alto Networks as a senior SE. And as a systems engineer, this was a startup when I started with them. I think I was employee 125. It was really early on. We weren't a public company. We were just getting started. The company was just trying to get the word out about their product. And I was one of the technical people hired to help spread that word, because that's really what a systems engineer does. We're more of kind of a technical trainer, but with an actual product behind us. You can think of it that way. And we really were the first year. Imagine telling people back then, I plug this in, I'll tell you exactly what's going on in your network. I know exactly how many people are on Facebook right now. I know exactly how many people are posting Twitter, and I can tell you exactly who's going to websites they shouldn't be going to instantly. And people thought, well, you can't do that. There's no way to do that. That technology doesn't exist. Then you plug it in. That was my job. So I started there, and it was one of those situations where we had a new technology and we had to kind of explain to people what we were doing. But that was the only time I really felt that, okay, I can kind of take all of this knowledge I've accumulated over the last X number of years, and it all rolls up into this. And the same thing's going to happen for you. You're going to build this foundation. Maybe you go over to the Linux side. Maybe you spend a lot of time with cloud-based technologies. Maybe you work a lot with building and automating different systems around the cloud. And then a security job comes along. And you will be very well positioned at that point to secure the cloud, secure the Active Directory infrastructure, and secure all of these things that you've spent all these years learning, so that you'll finally have the opportunity when that opportunity shows up. And that's what happened with me. Someone called me out of the blue, somebody I'd worked with years ago, who said, hey, I'm going to go start with this company. I gave them your name. You're going to get a call. Go in an interview. I hear a lot of lightning, so I'm taking metal out of my ear at this point. Go get that job. Go figure out what's going on, and you will be able to talk to them about all of these things that you have done. Now, at that time, I was working as a systems engineer, really more of a technical marketing manager for NetScout, which was a great job too. A lot of protocol analysis, a lot of network management, a lot of reporting. Really gave me a strong foundation that I was able to take there. Also at that time, kind of the early days of Professor Messer, I'd also written a book on Nmap. So that I was able to take to my interview and talk to them about using and seeing what's going on a network using some of these probably not well-known capabilities of Nmap. And I think ultimately it was this combination of Nmap and talking about security and protocol analysis and what we'd seen with different customers that ultimately got me locked into that position. And I'm incredibly grateful for that, because that was a great job. I think I stayed there about 7 years, which is a long time in the world of technology. That can happen to you too. And it should happen to you, because all you have to do is build the foundation and be ready when that comes. It's not luck. What is it they say, that luck is really just a lot of preparation and then we call it luck? Well, I guess in that case, maybe we'll call it luck, but it really was a lot of prep that got us to that point. And I still love that job. I think about it very all the time. The people that are there, I think very kindly of that position. It was a lot of fun. I like what I do now even better. It's a win-win, I guess. But that is one of those that I think would be useful if you're thinking of getting into cybersecurity and you're thinking, I can't just jump right in. It's okay. Build your path, make your own way, build your foundation, level up, and that job's going to be right around the corner. You will be able to get into that role in cybersecurity for sure. We got a few minutes left, even with I'm going to quickly look at my map of my danger map, which is showing me the type of, oh, great. I'm in a box, and in the middle of the box where all the red rain is, that's where I am right now. Could not be in a worse place. For those of you in Orlando, down here near Disney. A lot of bad stuff's going on. If you're in the parks, I'm really sorry. You're getting very wet right now. Well, let's talk about other questions you have because we have a few minutes left in this mix. Let's go through the middle of these. There's a couple that we have on this list that are pretty interesting. One of the ones that I'm doing or focusing on is looking at what you do after you finish the Security Plus. We may be jumping a little ahead, but those of you that have been in this position before, you can sort of understand this perspective. I'm going to take a question from Zach. It's a big question, but I think we can sift through it. It says, hello, Professor Messer. I recently passed my Security Plus certification. Congratulations. 6 months before that, I got a job as a contractor for the Department of Defense, who actually sponsored me to take and pass the certification exam. That's a great win-win right there. And as I've mentioned before in other study groups, the Department of Defense is very big on Security Plus. It is one of the primary starting points for allowing you to work in a role that's in security that has anything to do with Department of Defense. So that's probably a very good reason why your employer sponsored you and gave you that effort to earn your Security Plus, because effectively Department of Defense requires you to, at a bare minimum, have Security Plus. In fact, they don't care about A+, they don't care about Network Plus, they care about Security Plus. Continuing on, Zach says, I have about 4 years of desktop support, and now I'm in this new role. I'm doing a system administration. My question's, what should I be doing now? Do I go for the next cert, which in this case would be the Cybersecurity System Administrator or CySa Plus? Not sure what I should be doing after getting my Security Plus. This is really a win-win, isn't it? This is really a great one because you got a job. Yes. It's a contractor for DoD, but most of these jobs for DoD are contractor positions. So that's not a worry. That's sort of normal in the world of DoD positions. And you got your Security Plus. So that's sort of the bare minimum entry point for someone who's getting into those types of security roles, especially with the federal government. It doesn't even necessarily have to be DoD related, just federal government in the United States. And so probably a similar thing for other governmental jobs in different countries as well. So the question, and this is a common question I get, is I got my Security Plus, now what? And I think this is not an answer that people like to hear, but it's really the best possible answer for this. The answer is, I don't know. I don't know what your next step should be because, well, let's take a step back. What do we do with these certs? What good are they? Well, let's first immediately take off the table. When we go through the process of learning this content for certification, we're learning about these technologies. So there is a personal advantage to going through this. I have people come to my site that go through the entire Security Plus course. They look at my course notes, they go through the practice exams, they sit in the Discord, they participate in the Q&A that people do on the Discord, and they learn everything you need to learn to be certified for Security Plus. They just don't want the cert. They never go take the certification exam because they don't want it. They don't need it. It's not their thing, but they wanted that knowledge. So let's already say that there's a personal knowledge advantage to earning Security Plus. Yes, great. We're going to put that to the side for now. The other piece is, and probably the much larger one that people think about, is employers like these certifications. That's one of the main reasons that we're all here getting the cert, is employers would like you to have it. For example, I just mentioned with Zach that the Department of Defense does require you, not almost, they require you to have a Security Plus or similar certification at a bare minimum just to work with technology in the Department of Defense. So knowing that, and that employers like this cert, your next certification should probably be along the lines of, how can I improve my career goals? How can I extend my career goals and move into higher level positions, given what employers would like from me and what I would like to do? This is not something everybody has the option of, by the way. Technology is a great field for this. If you got into medicine, for example, we've been talking a lot about medicine today. If you got into medicine and you went into nursing, and if you're in nursing, it's really difficult to move into a different part of medicine. You can't easily become a radiology tech. You can't automatically become a doctor. You'd have to go to additional training for those things to do it. And it would probably require a very long-term training that's all of your time. You can't really do that part-time. There's not a lot of part-time medical careers you can get. You have to go full-time to school for a certain number of years, and then you can do that particular thing. Not so with IT. With IT, you can kind of lean into another set of technologies, learn as much as you can about it, to the level that you become a subject matter expert, an SME. That subject matter expert now is someone you should call if you have a question about that technology. So maybe your interest is in Linux and you learn everything you can learn about Linux. You might even become an expert in securing Linux. You might become an expert in integrating Linux with a Windows Active Directory infrastructure. Maybe your focus is on using Linux in a server environment and you can optimize it to be a database server, to be a container type service scenario. There's lots of things you can do with that operating system, and you become an expert in doing these things. You could do it in your sleep. You could set these things up, and everybody is in awe at how well you know that technology. Well, that's very marketable. And if you add on top of that a Linux certification, well, you're unstoppable. Employers were going to want to hire you because you have this very specialized knowledge that not a lot of people have. But then after a while, you think, oh, this Linux is going fine, but I've now kind of figured that part out. You know, what really interests me is this cloud technology over here, or this AI, or this large data storage, or this security, or networking, or whatever it is. And you can kind of lean into those. That's sort of what happened to me. I started with field service technician. I moved up into a corporate help desk position. Yeah, I upgraded to help desk. This is what I did. I upgraded to the help desk position. And then from there, upgraded into a workstation administrator position. From there, moved into a server administrator position, then into a network administrator position. So this was one where I really had to level up multiple times just to get up to that level. But I tried to learn as much as I could in that world while I was in it. And that was now in my experience bank. And I was able to move up and then work on the next one and then level up and then work on the next one and then level up. You can do the same thing. And that's exactly what I talk about with Zach's comment here, where I said, I don't know what your next certification should be because I don't know what you're interested in. Maybe now that you're in this DoD position, you're noticing that there's a lot of DoD jobs dealing with big data because there's so much AI going on right now on the back end. Consumer AI is still kind of, people aren't quite sure how to make money on that one yet, but big data AI has incredible utility and there's a lot of technology behind those scenes. So maybe you see a lot of that going on and you think there's going to be jobs for that everywhere. Nobody really knows it. It's a brand new technology. Let's learn everything we can about that one. And there might even be some certifications along those lines you might want to do. So that's one that if you're someone who is working and you're saying, I don't know what to do next, what should I do? Well, I don't know either. Now, if we sat down, we had some coffee, we talked about where you've been, we talked about where you want to go, we might be able to come up with some ideas. Well, have you tried this? What about that cert? Have you looked into these technologies? There may be a way to direct someone down a line there. There's no hard and fast answer because technology is very fluid. Technology changes in an instant. Technology changes under our feet constantly. It's very difficult sometimes to keep up with what's going with technology because it moves so fast. This is also an advantage. A lot of people look at that and think of it as a disadvantage. That's a huge advantage because the number of people who are an expert in some of these AI level technologies have only been experts for like a year and a half. So maybe two, because they really haven't been around for very long. That's how this industry works. That's how it worked with virtualization. That's how it worked with cloud-based technologies. That's how it works with a lot of networking technologies. And again, the cycle continues. This is the Cylons. This is Battlestar Galactica. It's happened before. It's going to happen again. That's where we are. We're now going through the same process with AI, and we've gone up the hill, and now we're sort of coming back down, and it's going to level out, and then another technology will show up in a few years, and we'll do the whole thing all over again where the opportunities arrive. You should be looking for those opportunities, by the way. When a new technology is released, a lot of people are very negative. A lot of people worry about it. A lot of people are concerned. They back away from it. You should lean into those technologies and figure out, is this one going to stick? Is there people asking about it? Do I need to become an expert in those things? And it may be that the organization that you're with is naturally leaning into that direction. There's a win-win. I volunteer for that project. Put me on there, coach. I want to get in there and figure out the details. They're great. We're going to send you to training. You're going to come back. You're going to design this. You're going to set it up. You're going to get it running. You're going to tell us how to maintain it. You're going to be the expert in this thing. Once you've done that, you're the expert not only for your organization, you can be an expert for anybody's organization. That's a real benefit. And that's how you should be thinking about these technologies, not as a stumbling block, not as a place where I need to spend time learning. You're always going to spend time learning. If you're not spending your time learning in technology, you're doing the wrong thing. Go out and learn as much as you can, and you will be able to simply level up and level up and level up. There is no ceiling, by the way. You can just keep leveling up, keep making more money, more flexibility, more options in your jobs, more different places to go. It's not easy. It's not simple, but it is very, very valuable. And it's certainly a good use of your time. So something to think about if you're planning to get into this particular line of work. It is fabulous. It is a great place to go. Tons of options, tons of different things to consider, and different opportunities will become available. Opportunities you didn't know were even available to you will suddenly open up. It's just the way that IT works. It's just the way that technology runs. It's just the way these cycles occur, and you just have to ride the wave when it hits. Yeah, this technology surfing, it can be a thing, and you should be able to hone your skills now so that when that big wave comes along, you can simply ride right on top of it and just ride it to wherever it's going to take you. And that's pretty much, that describes a lot of the things that I did in my career for sure. Well, I think that brings us to the end of another study group. I think that was a good set of questions. Thank you so much for being here, asking the questions. Thank you for being here in that first hour. Whenever I'm asking questions to a large group of people and getting the answers there, it would not be very good if there were only two of us. And we got one answer, 100% of you answered, or the only person who was here. So nice that you were able to join us. We do have such a good time putting this together and bringing it to you. So it's so good to have you join us and do this. Come on back next month. We've got A+ study groups, Network Plus study groups, Security Plus study groups, and so much more. It's a great place to go if you're trying to figure out how to get through these certifications. We'll take you there. I'm going to be over on Discord after this. Be sure to join us if you haven't been on our Discord before. Don't forget about our calendar. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/calendar. You'll know when all of our live events are going to be. We'd love to see you back for another one. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group. Thanks.